Alright, man, so here we go for another series. Bucks and Pacers. This has been a spicy series, very spicy series. If you guys ever remember, they had an in-season tournament where they kind of got into it, the Bucks and the Pacers. It was like a game ball thing where I think the Bucks won and Giannis had like a 50 ball. And that's the first time they beat the Pacers this season, and the Pacers didn't want to get a ball to Giannis, and it was on their home court. So very spicy series. The Pacers have won this season series 4-1. So they've been smacking the Bucks all around this season. And all this is before the Siakam trade. All this is before the trade deadline. And this is with Giannis as well. So things are going to be a little different without Giannis. Now that he's going to be out for at least a few games for this series. I don't know if he's going to be out the whole series, but he's going to be out at least a few games for the series. So that's going to make a big difference in how I view this series. Just to kind of give you guys some perspective on their percentage of without Giannis. That's kind of what I'm going to go with today. So the Bucks have a 117.2 offensive rating without Giannis, and a 121.8 defensive rating without Giannis. So that is a minus 4.6 net rating. Not very good. With Giannis, they have a 3.5 net rating. Just to kind of give you guys some perspective there. So Indiana is actually, the Bucks are actually top 5 worst in points in the paint, which is kind of odd since you have Giannis, which is one of the best paint abusers in the NBA, if not the best. He just kind of gets to the basket at will. So that kind of shows you where the Bucks are without Giannis. That kind of takes away at least half of those points with Giannis not being here. So that's something they have to work on. Specifically because Indiana is tied for the worst team in points in the paint allowed. So they actually give up a lot of points in the paint as a team. And if the Bucks can't take advantage of that, that's an advantage to the Pacers, of course. Especially without Giannis, that kind of leans in the Pacers' favor. The Pacers are also the fastest paced team in the NBA. The Bucks are the 3rd worst paced team on defense in the NBA. So the Bucks are very slow, Pacers are very fast. So that kind of gives you a contrast of the two teams. Especially without Giannis, they're kind of missing that freight train going into the paint. Defensively, for the Bucks, they are 8-8 versus teams with the highest pace in the league. So some of those teams include Pacers, of course, the Kings, the Pelicans, even the Hornets, the Wizards. They're 8-8, so they're 500 in that series. So it's not their greatest matchup, but the Pacers are probably the best team out of the bunch in terms of pace. They're giving up 128 points per game to the Pacers, which is a lot. So they're just getting fried defensively, absolutely fried. They specifically have a hard time keeping guards in front. So guards like Haliburton, McConnell, even Andrew Nembhard, they get to the paint at will on the Bucks. So that's something the Bucks kind of gotta, be out on the look for. The Pacers are first in points in the paint per game as a team. So, like I said, that's because the Bucks cannot keep guys in front. Guys like Malik Beasley, Damian Lillard hasn't been good defensively. They're just getting torched on the defensive end and getting straight line drives and blown by. With the Pacers being able to space the floor with Miles Turner, that kind of leaves guys like Brook Lopez in a particular position, because now they got to either play the 3 or they kind of got to just stay in the paint and just try to, contest those shots. So kind of one of those things that the Bucks kind of got to pick their poison with. Also, to kind of look at some of the key guys for the Bucks, specifically on defense. Offensively, it's going to be a Dame-centric offense, especially without Giannis. He actually has a 36.1 usage rate without Giannis, which would be pretty much on par with Luka Doncic for the highest usage rate in the league. So pretty high. He'll have the ball in his hands 90% of the time. But Malik Beasley, he has a 118 defensive rating. Pat Bev has a 115.4 defensive rating. Pat Bev's a little better. Obviously, it's more of a kind of like, in your face, like rah-rah guy, kind of, get the crowd involved, one of those type of players. Malik Beasley is just very slow-footed, and so he gets blown by a lot by quicker guards. And you can see that during the game if you watch any of the Bucks games this season. They also play a lot of drop coverage. So they play a lot of drop coverage with Lopez, because Lopez is very slow-footed as well. So what a drop coverage is, when they set the screen, Lopez will kind of play back. He usually plays like a deep drop coverage to kind of give guys like Haliburton and McConnell those pull-up threes. Haliburton has been a very good pull-up three-point shooter this year. Not so much lately after his hamstring injury, but still overall pretty good pull-up shooter. So some of the Bucks lineups that I think they will go with without Giannis, their main kind of go-to lineups is Dame, Malik Beasley, Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and Lopez. So they kind of go with that 2 big lineup. With that lineup, they had 98 possessions total during the season. They had a 102 offensive rating and a 110 defensive rating. So that's a minus 8.2 net rating. Around a minus 8.2 net rating, like I said. Not good. Not good at all. They're actually even worse with Pat Bev in the lineup. So with Pat Bev, Dame, Middleton, Portis, and Lopez, they have a minus 11 net rating. Because their offense is significantly worse. Because Pat Bev isn't a great offensive threat. And the defense rated is a little better, but not significantly better to the point where you would consider that lineup. But then again, you kind of got to pick your poison because, you know, the Bucks don't really have a good bench and there's no Giannis. So you kind of have to pick your poison with who you want in that two guard spot. So the keys for the Bucks to have a chance in this series: less turnovers. They have to cut the turnovers down. When they actually won the turnover battle and had less turnovers than the Pacers, they won that one game. That's the only game they won versus the Pacers when they had less turnovers. So they must keep the turnovers down. Less long shots. I know you guys heard the cliche, long shots, long rebounds. So they must cut some of that down. Kind of get to the paint. The Pacers are a weak team in the paint, so try to attack that weakness of theirs. Also, can they contain in the drop coverage? Guys like Haliburton, guys like McConnell are very good at getting to the paint, sneaking their way in, and getting shots for themselves or others. Guys like Aaron Nesmith, some of the wings, Obi Toppin, Siakam now, like, they're good as cutters. So what they do is when Lopez in a drop coverage and these guys get into the paint, because the drop coverage is meant for guys to be in pull-up positions, usually in the mid-range, you can get in the paint and guys can cut off of that and get easy backdoors for lob layups and things of that nature. So as long as the Bucks could kind of, you know, get those three things kind of settled down, I think they'll be in good shape. I don't know if it'll make them win without Giannis, but if they can kind of keep that down, I think the series could actually go like 2-2. And if Giannis could come back, I think it's kind of a toss-up series from there. So I think the Bucks could do that. They'll have a chance there. So with the addition of Siakam, it only adds another layer to the Pacers' offense. Now they have someone that could play in isolation, that could play out of the post, that could cut off Tyrese Haliburton and McConnell's drives, like could shoot the three as well. So Siakam just adds another element to the Pacers' offense that they didn't even see when they played the Bucks earlier in this season. And without Giannis, that's going to be a tough task just to try to handle all that firepower. So all in all, I think the Pacers have this series. I'll say they win in Bucks with a higher seed. I say Pacers in 5. Pacers in 5. I know that kind of shocked a lot of you guys, but I think the Pacers will kind of get this series out early. All right, they don't want to see Giannis when he comes back, so I say the best, you know, plan is to get these guys out the way early, so you don't gonna see Giannis, a revengeful Giannis, kind of get out the way early. So I say Pacers in 5. That's that.